Psyche Truth. Life, wisdom.
Hi, my name is Mira Hoffman, and in this video we're going to be talking about some fantastic techniques to use to massage the abdomen. And this can be really good if you tend to just have a lot of tension in this area. Maybe you have some digestive things going on. And some of the techniques are actually even incredible for if you have low back pain, which I know a lot of people do. So stay tuned towards the end when we talk about some of the techniques for the low back pain especially. So I'm going to begin just by getting a little bit of lotion in my hands. And then I like to come really gently into the abdomen because it is such a sensitive area. So what I like to do is just kind of start pressing my hands, lowering them down, and letting the client kind of breathe into the contact. So not a lot of force as you come in, just letting them come into contact with your hands. And you can see Joy has this beautiful belly button ring. I'm curious if you like it. Leave us a comment if you like belly button rings, and hers in particular. I'm curious to know. So we're going to begin just by warming up the abdomen, making some nice slow circular movements. It's important to note that when you're working on the abdomen, you want to do a clockwise circle. And the reason for that is that it helps move things in the direction of the digestive system. So you're kind of working with the natural flow of the body, natural flow of the intestines, small and large. And as I'm doing these circles, I'm starting to work deeper and deeper. And starting to connect and tune in with the organs in the abdomen and in the belly. I'm just moving nice and slow, tracing the ribs. And coming back down the other set of ribs. And kind of using the hips as a guideline for my work. I'm going to show y'all a couple advanced moves and techniques that can really help. People have a lot of tension in this area. And so the abdomen just kind of is nice and warmed up now. And we're going to begin by just gently pulling towards us. So starting at the hip level and just pulling the hands towards the midline. And just giving the ab muscle a nice counter stroke. So the abs kind of running like this. I'm doing a nice perpendicular stroke here, kind of stretch them. And I'll do that again and kind of focus on gathering some of the low back muscles as well. And just kind of pulling everything towards you. You can see that my fingers are starting to work over the ribs. If you want, you can let your fingertips kind of work between each rib bone, so kind of working on the intercostal muscles. And then coming off the ribs towards the midline. So this is really good if you've been feeling a little stagnant, or maybe your digestion has been a little bit sluggish. You can do this abdominal massage or have a friend massage you. It'll really help get things moving and help kind of improve the overall health of your digestive system. So if I were in practice, I would switch sides and kind of do that same technique that we did to the other side, just for balance. And then returning back to our resting or beginning stroke. Just kind of doing some nice circular motions here. So now I like to start and work just kind of targeting not only the muscles but the organs as well. So I'm going to be making some very gentle, just circular movements in that same area that we've already warmed up. Using the pads of my fingers so we can work a little bit deeper. And just making the intention to kind of do some nice, gentle, circular techniques. And just noticing and letting the client give you any feedback if there's any tenderness. Maybe you feel some areas that feel a little bit hard. Sometimes we have impactions in our bowels. Or maybe it's just muscular tension. So you can kind of work into those areas with some focus. And kind of working closer into the belly button. You can see that my hands and fingers are kind of depressing, maybe about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So not a lot. And definitely you want to customize this to whatever feels good for your client or your partner. And don't want to be too pointy or too much pressure. You start to feel the pulse or the person feels a sharp pain. It's an indication that you need to back out. It's maybe too much pressure in a small area. Or maybe they have something going on that's kind of creating that tenderness. And again, just kind of coming back into that circular warm-up stroke. For the next move, I'm going to focus kind of facing upwards. We're going to massage upwards and then out. And then I'm going to scoop underneath the low back and pull up towards the sky. So pushing the hands up from the lower abdomen towards where the ribs meet. Splaying the fingers out along the ribs. Slowly scooping underneath the low back. So starting to release and relieve tension in the low back. And then pulling up towards the sky. And do that one more time. Spreading down to the low back and lifting, pulling up towards the sky. And you can come out to the ribs and stabilizing with your outside hand. You can use your inner hand to kind of press underneath the ribs just a little bit. And this is really good for relieving some tension in the diaphragm. Maybe the person has trouble taking deep breaths. And you can see Joy's floating ribs starting to poke out there. Very prominent one, so just making sure that you're not kind of applying pressure directly on that because that could feel tender or painful. So a lot of times we carry tension in our abdomen and just don't even realize that it's kind of a place where our stress tends to get bottled up. And it's not that common for people to work or massage the abdomen. So if this is something they're interested in trying, I encourage you to let your therapist know that you want it included in the stomach in the session. And sometimes people use that time for other areas. And just tractioning underneath the abs, underneath the ribs again. And coming out to her floating rib with my pointer. I'm just trying to tuck underneath that so you're not pressing anything directly into it. I'm really trying to work out that full surface, all those connections into the ribs. You can kind of do the same thing with your thumbs if you want. So using your thumbs to kind of tuck underneath the ribs at the same time. It's good to encourage your receiver to take some nice deep breaths here because they can really maximize the work and that release into the diaphragm. And getting some movement in the intestines, just some little bit bubbly noises. Sometimes I like to just even do some nice compression with my full hand. So one of my favorite moves is working actually into the psoas muscle. And this is the one that's absolutely fantastic for low back pain. So coming onto the side that you want to work on and looking for this hip crest here, we're going to follow it kind of upwards and inwards. So kind of superior and then medially, like in towards the abdomen or center line. And what you're looking for is it's just going to feel like a little ropey muscle. And the client shouldn't be feeling any sharp pain, or you should not be feeling any pulse. But it can feel tender. So how's that feeling, Joy? Okay. So our bodies work as a system of balances, so right versus left, front versus back. So a lot of times when I have clients that have low back pain, they complain that their low back muscles are really tight. Well, oftentimes it's easy to work on those muscles and then forget that we have all these stabilization muscles in the core. So psoas is one of the big ones implicated in low back pain. It's one of the ones that you really want to get nice and relaxed and released, because that's going to give your client some more lasting relief. I think we're also probably getting a little bit of a tickle reaction from Joy. And if you have people that are really ticklish, there's a couple things that you can do. So use a broader pressure. So she seems like she's doing okay now, but if she's kind of continuing to tense up, you could use like your knuckles or just like a wider surface. Or you can also have your partner just press on your hand, and so then it starts to feel biofeedback wise like it's their hand. And I don't know if anyone can actually tickle themselves, so I think it kind of helps circumvent that response. So just doing some little circles on that muscle right at the top of the hip. And I like to kind of energetically just hold after working that area, scooping my bottom hand underneath the low back, and then just putting my top hand kind of gently over the area that we just worked. And again, I would repeat the same thing for the other side. So just for sake of the camera, I'll do it from this side, but normally I would step around. So tracing the hip, a little tickle, And then you're trying to come up and in. So having the person start to take deep breaths when you get there. And really, I like to hold these areas and give the client the opportunity to really relax and sense the work that's going on. If you have a pregnant lady who just gave birth, and as long as it's a vaginal birth, because it's not going to work as much with the C-section, it's really good to do that technique where you're kind of scooping and pulling the abs back together, because just naturally through the childbirthing process and the process of carrying a person inside of you, your abdominal muscles tend to split and separate. So by doing this motion of kind of gathering them back together will help that area recover and restore quicker. So the last part that we're going to do is just kind of doing some gentle circles on the actual abdominal muscles. So again, the abs kind of run like this. So I'm just doing little tiny gentle circles. I'm just feeling for any areas that maybe feel a little tight. Just working down the length of that muscle. And come back up to the top if you want. Start on the other side. I'm just feeling for areas that feel a little tight. And so basically we've pretty thoroughly worked kind of like the mid to upper portion of the abs, the abdominal muscles. But they actually connect all the way into the top of your pubic bone. And if you needed to, and had clients that had kind of severe abdominal tension, you can take the heel of your hand, and I always like to check in with them and let them know that I'm going to do this. Before we even start the session, we talk about it. And so I'm just going to use the heel of my hand to kind of continue the work that we started. And then you're working just kind of in towards that insertion point. So again, this is something that you'd want to have a conversation about before you start, because it can be a very sensitive area. With guys, you would definitely want to make sure that they have moved themselves out of the way so you have access to that area, and that there's not any co-implications that would prevent you from working on that area. And then just kind of gently coming back to that circular warm-up. Now we're using it as a closing. And then I like to leave the same way that I started. So I'm going to very gently start raising my hands. Every time Joy breathes, we're going to start slowly disconnecting and bringing your hands up and away. So again, my name is Mira Hoffman. I hope you got some wonderful techniques out of this video. Please save it and favorite it so you can come back and watch it again. Feel free to leave us a comment if there's anything that you had a question about, or if there's other videos you'd like us to see. And make sure that you subscribe to the Psyche Truth YouTube channel. We have thousands of videos on yoga, massage, nutrition, health and wellness, here to help inspire and motivate and support you through your exploration in these fields. Thank you.